Well, good morning, good afternoon, good middle of the night. We have a panel scheduled, but I'm not sure where my panelists are. So I thought while we're awaiting them coming in from Honolulu, Hawaii, with a radical time difference from me here in New York, I thought I'd address a few minutes about the coronavirus and its effect on safety with our children. I'll do a separate session outside of the summit for our own safety and security and those of small businesses. When we look at sexual exploitation of children online, you need to understand several things. You need to understand the grooming process, and there are 10 categories of sexual predation ploys, from appeals for assistance, help me find my puppy, I don't have my glasses, can you read this map for me, this is too heavy, can you carry it for me, can you show me how to play this game better, I don't know how to use TikTok. Those kind of things that engage young people who want to be helpful. There's authority, come over here, you did something wrong. It's curiosity. I've got something nobody else can see. Do you want to see it? It might be porn. It may be sex. It may be something. And there are 10 categories, and each child responds differently to different categories. And as we look at the internet, we need to recognize that based on what our children are posting and how active they are, that it's very easy to figure out which category will work for that child. So children who talk about being helpful, children who are ambitious, children who are interested in earning money will all be susceptible to ploys that work that way. So all they have to do is watch. Remember the song about pina coladas and walks in the rain? Well, all they have to do is watch what our kids are posting, the pictures that they have, whatever's going on, so that they can see how to reach that child. And that's a real problem. Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to see what happened to my panel. Okay, apparently the time difference in our daylight savings time has screwed that up. So the panel with Andrew Lanning is now going to be at 2 o'clock our time. Alan, I have Andrew just messaged me. It's 2 o'clock. I just need you to check my schedule and see if that works. Okay, good. So Andrew, hopefully you're watching, or somebody will let you know that 2 o'clock works. So everyone who came in at 1 o'clock for Andrew, come back in an hour. And we'll talk about that. But let's get back to coronavirus and your child. The more time your children are spending online, the more they're sharing online, the more their friends are sharing about them online, the easier it is for internet sexual predators to find out how to get into your child's head. And sexual predators know that offline appeals for assistance, help me find my puppy, etc., works best. But online, those of love and affection. Nobody appreciates you. You're so pretty. I don't think you're fat. I think you're wonderful. My child is sick and I don't have anybody who loves me. I don't think your parents appreciate you. Those kind of things get into our children's heart, and from that into their heads. John Pizzuro from the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force here in the New York metropolitan area talked about that. And he said the greatest vulnerability is that gets into our children's heads. So we have to work on that as we recognize that our children are more vulnerable. But the more they're online, the more they're sharing, the more of this information they're giving to predators. We learned in 1998 when we did a survey of about 10,000 teen girls, as I recall, with the University of Southern Florida and Teen Magazine, 17 magazine. We learned that the longer young people spend online, the higher their rate of at-risk behavior. And that's because if there's something they need to tell their best friends, or there's a picture they want to share, or there's a sale online that they want to go to for the Gap, these things are purpose-oriented. They get on, they do those first, and they may check out their Instagram or TikTok or see some new choreographed dance. But after that, they're just roaming. And when I was growing up in the olden days, my mother used to tell me to come straight home after school. And the reason she did was she knew that the wandering that happens too often as we walk home from school gets us into trouble. We may smoke, we may drink, we may hang out with the wrong people, we may end up going in a place that isn't safe for us. So giving them an object direction. You have 2 hours a day to spend online other than homework. It helps them do the most important things, the most compelling things first. And those are the ways they're not going to get into trouble. They're looking for the sale. They're looking for shoes on Posh. They're whatever it is that's important to them, that's engaging, and it's less likely that that's going to be involving an internet sexual predation ploy. However, the longer they're online, the longer they don't have a purpose for being online, the more they click because why not, the more likely they are to get into trouble. We did a survey of a few thousand teen girls several years ago in Westchester County, New York, and that's where the entire town was quarantined recently because of Corona. It's an affluent town, and 70% of the teen girls who responded said that they regretted whatever they had done on their webcam in those days. And this was several years ago, and the technology was not as vibrant and as engaging and as easy to connect in a streamed environment as it is now. But it was a real problem. And because of that problem, we recognize that wandering, why not, I can, gets everyone into trouble. So we need to recognize that. I did something with Newsweek magazine many years ago. And it was a story about the life of a 13-year-old online. And the editors-in-chief must have had a 13-year-old and sent the columnist out to me and said, how do we find out what 13-year-olds do online? So I said to the columnist, come out with me. And I took him to a middle-income town in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is an affluent county. And I took them to the library. It was set up ahead of time at the school. And they gave me about 12 kids who were 13 years old, all shapes, sizes, colors. And in the middle of this was a boy who was white. His hair was combed with Brylcreem, so it didn't move no matter what. He had a Man Taylor shirt, and all of the buttons, including those on the Man Taylor collar, and his cuffs were buttoned. He had khaki pants that had been pressed, so you had a really sharp crease. He had penny loafers with pennies in them, and everything was polished. So you know the kind of kid I'm talking about. One who rarely breaks the rules and is not going to come up with a really good soundbite for Newsweek. So I'm talking to all of the kids, and I said, what do you do online that your parents would kill you if they knew about? I don't ask that question anymore in a group setting because I get honest answers. And one of the kids said, well, I order pizzas and send it to this fat girl in class. And somebody else said, oh, I pretend to be somebody else and say mean things. I do prank phone calls, whatever. And I ran out of questions. They had all answered them, and the journalist took down all of the answers. And this boy had his hand up the whole time. Hand up on what, didn't put it down. I kept thinking of Urkel on television series. So I finally said, okay, what do you do that your parents would kill you if they knew about? And he said, I send death threats. Death threats? I stopped frozen. And as I just looked at him, I said, death threats? And he said, oh, yeah, but don't worry, because I'm not really going to kill anybody, which, of course, relieved me. And the columnist was just sitting there. It was Brad Stone. Brad was just taking crazy notes. And I said, what do you mean you send death threats? And he said, well, I'm the best researcher in my class. So I have different color index cards and highlighters and different color pens, and I organize information that way. So I go online and I get information about people, and I keep them on my different color index cards, my different color markers and highlighters. And when I have enough information, I go online and send them a death threat. Because there was this woman who was talking about how she got a new car and she just painted her house yellow, and her daughter Shannon. So I went online and I said, "Oh, Shannon looked very nice coming out of your brand new Ford Taurus. And I really like the way the car looks parked in your yellow house driveway. And oh, by the way, I'm going to kill you." So the woman didn't know that he had pennies in his penny loafers and that he was, he had buttons on his cuffs. She didn't know. She gets a death threat. They seem to know all about her house and her car and her daughter. And everything was out of control. So I said, "Well, why do you do this?" And he said, "Because I can." And he said, "I'm not the kind of person who would really kill anybody. I'm a good kid. I have good grades. I want to be a doctor when I grow up, but I can. So I do." Our kids can. And they can do more now than ever before. And they do it because why not? They're bored. They have time on their hands. Whether you're working in your home office or working in the kitchen and the kids are in the family room or wherever they are with their cell phones or handheld devices or whatever, they can. And they are. They are engaging with adults. They're engaging in high risk behavior. They are accessing things they shouldn't access. You're not watching. If you are, you're otherwise occupied trying to figure out how to get into your VPN at work. You are worried about how to find toilet paper and milk and eggs. And keeping your kids supervised online is the least of your problems. And our kids are home. And they're not home because it's summer vacation or a break where we have things scheduled and childcare and play dates. They're home alone because they're not allowed to socialize with their friends. They are home alone and they're bored out of their minds. We're worried about what they're doing, so we're not taking them to movie theaters. We're not taking them to restaurants, many of which aren't even serving food anymore. We are isolated in our homes and our kids are bored. And when kids are bored, they get into trouble. Whether they did it 60 years ago because I did or now, they get into trouble. So it is a real problem. They are vulnerable. They are accessible. They have a lot more technology online. They may have technology that they didn't have before because the schools are now handing out Chromebooks and the rest to allow the kids to engage in digital education while the schools are closed. So they're accessible, they're bored, and the bad guys know that they are accessible and bored and online. And they are also stressed. So when they're stressed because we're stressed, when they're stressed because they're watching hate on television and coronaviruses and everybody dying in all of these countries around the world and worried about how their grandparents are going to handle it, how their parents are going to handle it, what it means to them, whether their dogs can infect them, they're stressed. And when they're stressed, they look for comfort and support. And too often, especially when we don't give it because we are also stressed, they get that support online. And that's all the bad guys need. They need a way in. They need to know your secrets. They need to know that you're available and accessible and vulnerable, and they have you right where they want you. So in times of coronavirus, you need to make sure that you have all of the toilet paper and bottled water that I still don't understand why everybody's rushing to get. It feels more like a blizzard than a virus setting. But while you have to worry about this and how to keep your job and whether your business can stay open, whether your parents are well, all of this, as we look at that, we need to recognize that there are other risks we need to pay attention to. And they tie directly into what we're doing at the summit, which is protecting our children from internet sexual predation and crimes against children that are facilitated by digital technology, sexting, sextortion, high-risk activities, threats, cyberbullying that's sexting related, internet sexual predators who want their images, want to meet them, want to engage, traffic them. Unfortunately, the technology that allows our kids to connect 24/7, 365, learn from the world, connect with the world is also being used to get into your house, to get into your kids' school, to get into their school bus, walk with them to school, to make them victims. And it's happening way too often. So I'm adding to your stress by putting something else on the plate, but make sure that your children's safety is not sacrificed during this time of coronavirus, that you keep your eye on the ball and keep your kids safe. Thanks.